Hello, everyone. Today we're joined by Dr. Abdul Omari, founder of AMO Enterprise, a leadership development consulting firm that focuses on strengthening diversity, equity, and inclusion. Abdul served 6 years as an elected member of the Board of Regents at the University of Minnesota and currently serves on the University of Minnesota Foundation Board of Trustees and the Board of Directors for Achieve Minneapolis and Civic Eagle. He's also a longtime friend of GREATER MSP. Welcome, Abdul. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Peter.
Today, Abdul and I are going to provide a teaser for MSP Transforming, a digital series that explores major changes taking place in our economy and in communities across the greater Minneapolis-Saint Paul region. Now, you are the host of MSP Transforming, and for the past several weeks, you've been talking with dozens of regional leaders about big questions, from what's driving growth in our economy today, to how do we accelerate efforts to advance racial justice and equity. So I've got a few questions. Is that okay?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, question one. What has the experience of speaking with so many leaders from different sectors in the Minneapolis-Saint Paul region been like for you?
Well, it's been pretty dope, to be honest. And we had the opportunity to come into this really approaching it from a discovery mindset, and being able to come into that as a learner and someone who's, not an expert in these areas has been really fun for me. I think it's been a lot of fun to realize and see how many people are doing great work in a variety of innovative ways that are driving the region, sometimes in quiet ways and sometimes in louder ways.
So what did you learn about the region in this process?
Yeah. Well, one, I think, part of it was learning stuff, and part of it, I think, was like relearning and things coming back to the forefront, right? And so, I learned a lot about our history in the region, things that, from innovation and things that have happened in the past to, flour milling and things like that I didn't really know about, but it makes sense because I live right down the street from Mill City. I learned about, the dynamic of individuals and organizations that are doing important work. I think I relearned the importance of people, right? And so, when we think about some of the organizations we featured, they're large, some are small, but at the end of the day, it's the people that are driving the innovation and driving the work, right? And so that was pretty cool. In line with learning about some of the history, I also was reminded of some of the ugly truths of our history, and learned a lot about, some things that are related but might not be connected to the naked eye unless folks talk about the connections that exist.
I love the comment about people. I mean, it's so simple, but we do have to remind ourselves, for all the moving parts and complications, it's about people committing their time and effort, taking risks, doing big things, building bridges. Of all the conversations you had with those leaders, what are one or two moments that stick out for you, and why?
Yeah. One that I'll draw attention to had to do with a project that's taking place around soil and regenerative soil, and really about feeding, our region and beyond, to make sure that we have healthy soil. And one of the things that I found fascinating in my conversation was really about how we are still using practices and really coming back to indigenous practices around farming and agriculture. And so many years later, where you don't necessarily think the way that farming is done now would go back to practices that have been happening for so long, from indigenous and native people to our land, was a real moment for me to just kind of stop and sit with it, and make sure that not only are we acknowledging that, but also realizing that we may have messed some things up that were working really well, and now we're trying to be like, oh wait, it was actually being done in a healthy way, in a way that preserves things. And so really, that was a moment for me that really stood out. And then I think more broadly, one of the things that stood out for me, and I hope that viewers catch this as well, is, I was interviewing people and meeting people for the first time, but then I saw them and was like, oh, I know who you are. or had read the name and been like, I've never actually met you in person. And so that synergy that came with it, and realizing, again, kind of coming back to this idea of, you know, really being connected in ways that is really meaningful, really stood out to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, MSP Transforming is a lot about, it's not just observing the changes, but kind of making these connections. And in case people missed it, you did say soil, right? Yes. We're talking about dirt, right? Yes. As a part of MSP Transforming, and it's awesome.
Yes.
It's really important.
Absolutely.
If you care about climate, you got to care about dirt. That's one thing you're going to learn from this. So from everything you heard, what gives you the most hope for our region's future?
Yeah. So I'm not going to answer that exactly how you might want, but I'm just going to start with this and just be completely transparent and honest. Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, women, LGBTQIA+, like, there's reason to be skeptical and pessimistic about where we're at in the future. Now, having said that, I will also say that there is a tremendous amount of hope, knowing that we have the tools, right? We have the tools to move people into the direction of thriving, to not only look at, you know, making things equitable, but really making things, moving things in a direction where people will not just be like, oh, if you're 12% of the population, you have 12% chance of being poor, right? But instead, like, how do we make it so that no one is living in conditions that are really not livable? And then the other thing that I'll say is, you know, I do think that there's a movement that has begun to pick up pace, that has reemerged. And I think it's a movement that more people are starting to say to other folks, if you're not going to come along, then this might not be the spot for you. And so whether we like it or not, you know, the train is moving, and we're moving with or without folks who may not want to make progress in a way that is more just for the future.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about in MSP Transforming, the changes we have to make, the people who are making them, the reasons why it's imperative. And I'm so appreciative. I know we're also appreciative of you, Abdul, committing your time and energy to put this together, do something creative and innovative so more people can get a sense of what's going on at this moment when we're so socially distanced until we can be back together in person again. And I'd encourage everyone to join us for this virtual launch event in early March to see what MSP Transforming is about, and then to start watching.
Indeed. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot.